Okay, on our next story, we're going to talk about something that could seriously turn into a really big problem, and it probably will because it doesn't seem like Joe Biden's organization will be doing anything about it, and that is ending eviction moratoriums and how likely it has led to thousands of more coronavirus deaths in this study. 4 months after lifting bans on evictions, states saw twice as many COVID 19 cases and 5 times more deaths, UCLA researchers found. States that ended protections banning evictions in the spring and summer of 2020 likely led to hundreds of thousands of additional COVID 19 cases and thousands of deaths from the coronavirus, according to the new UCLA study. The study, published on Monday in the American Journal of Epidemiology, looked at 43 states that have had eviction moratoriums from March to September 2020 and compared COVID 19 cases in those that lifted moratoriums, allowing renters to be evicted, with those that kept protections in place. The UCLA researchers found that about 4 months after evictions were allowed to resume, states saw on average twice as many COVID cases and 5 times more deaths from the virus. Ending eviction protections, the study estimated, led to some 433,000 excess COVID cases and about 10,000 additional deaths by September 2020. We don't care about people. It's so hard to say that America is for the people when things happen and you can't afford your rent and they will just throw you out on the streets. What's to be said about that? You're throwing somebody on the streets because they're poor, because they can't afford rent. Which, even if you had a job, let's say you had a job, most people are losing their jobs, but let's say you had a job and you were making minimum wage, you still couldn't afford that same apartment. But you can't afford your apartment with or without COVID. You can't afford your apartment. And then you get evicted and you're more likely to get sick and die. So, think about evictions, and this should go under is it proportionally affects people of color, minorities, and poor people way more. Why? Because they make less money. Obviously, they're poor, and then they get charged a little bit more in these poorer communities that don't have rent protection. Rent can go up and up and up until they basically force you out of your home. So at this point, you're either forced to work being sick, or you're forced to work in a situation that could lead to you becoming sick, more than likely. Dangerous work conditions, and you have to, because either that or you'll be on the street. But then you get sick, and then you're on the street anyway. So it's a broke again. It goes back to the system being broken and how we could help people. We could help these people if we had universal housing. If we put some of that money that we spend on secret wars, illegal wars, all this money we make for bombs, for jets, for planes, the giant military industrial complex, I'm sure we could afford some universal housing. So people who are in this situation, when times get tough, they wouldn't have to worry about being evicted and being homeless and getting sick, because when you're homeless, you're more likely to either A, go to a shelter, or B, move in with somebody's house. And as we know about COVID, you're only really safe around people you have contact with every single day. So if you're moving into somebody else's house, you're exposing them and exposing yourself. And let's not talk about the shelters. I've been homeless before. I know about them, and just the menial living conditions and how they pack so many bodies into the floor. And I'm not saying that that's inherently a bad thing, because you do need to get these people off the streets, but it's not safe for your health. So over 13 million renters in America say that once these moratoriums end, they're going to have a slight chance to no chance at paying their rent. 13 million Americans that could be on the street, homeless. And what is the government doing? Well, nothing. As usual, they're talking platitudes and cliches. They signed a bill for 465 billion, which you think, oh, 465 billion, it's not even that much. It's not even that much. That is complete trash. So, but they made 465 billion in rental aid, but only about 6.5% of that relief ever made it to its intended targets. So renters that don't have money to pay rent and landlords that aren't getting any rent, no one's getting any money. So you sign a bill saying 4.5 this is why there's too much red tape in the government. Why is nobody getting their money? Why is nobody getting their money? You have all this money, taxpayer dollars, going to relief, and yet they're not getting it. They're not getting any of it. So we've reached an impasse where there's no money coming in, and the government's not willing to help out. The Biden administration, of course, you can imagine what Joe Biden said. It's out of his hands. Congress can pass it. And if Congress doesn't pass it, then they won't extend it anymore, because the Supreme Court has ruled that the CDC isn't allowed to make these moratoriums. That's out of their reach. They've extended their reach, even though at the end of the day they're just trying to help people. How is that extending your reach? If you want to talk about extending your reach, the next story we're going to talk about, the Pentagon bombing Somalia without any jurisdiction from Congress or the president. So if you want to talk about overextending your reach, let's talk about the deep state. But no, when it's about people, when it's about what we could do for people, it's an issue. But when it's about giving the military unlimited power, giving the president unlimited power, giving power to destroy lives and nations to single individuals, then no, that's not a problem. But when it comes to making sure that people aren't homeless on the streets dying from being sick, we can't do it. Welcome to America, folks. Welcome to America.